This is NEWSFASH, the podcast where fashion and news meet for your weekly dose of insider insights. I'm your host, fashion journalist Mosha Lundström Halbert, and together we're going to stay up to date and open to learn about fashion from a variety of perspectives. And hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode and session of NEWSFASH Live here on TikTok, and it'll also be available wherever you get your podcasts and also on YouTube. So while I give everyone a bit of time to join us and hop on and remind you that I will be taking your live questions today, as well as giving you a rundown of what's happened in the week in fashion thus far. So keep those questions coming. I'll scroll up to the top and I'll try to go through as many as I can. I wanted to start off by diving into the week in fashion that was. It was a little bit truncated, I think, coming off of American Thanksgiving. Hi to everyone that's joining us now. I love seeing where we're able to reach everyone and talk about fashion and get different perspectives from all around the world. Speaking of which, let's start this week in China, because I just saw a story that Ralph Lauren is doing a really big marketing push and takeover right across China, but very much focused in Shanghai and Beijing for the Very Ralph premiere, which is interesting because this is a documentary about Ralph Lauren that he also participated in, that has been out for a little while now. I feel like I saw it a few years ago. It's on HBO if you'd like to see it. It really does give a good overview of Ralph Lauren's background. It also is a great reminder, and I consider it a primary source, because you hear Ralph Lauren, the man himself, family members, and key company executives refer to him as Ralph Lauren, not Ralph Lauren. So if you have any questions in your mind of how to properly say his name and his brand, that should confirm it right there. And it is a great reminder because Ralph Lauren is one of these brands that is so omnipresent in our culture and in China, I think, and also here in the US, really represents what is possible with the American dream. But I think Ralph Lauren's very humble beginnings and the fact that the man himself had no connection to the worlds of polo or aristocracy or even like Western and Navajo cultures that he's incorporated and been inspired by in so many of his designs. And he's really, a self-made, self-created fantasist in a way. Like, it really is a dream in his mind, the kind of lifestyle that he's conjured up with his brand and that he's now able to live based upon the success of it. So I highly recommend you watch. Again, it's called A Very Ralph, and it just premiered it's premiering in China, but you can watch it on HBO still, I believe. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about before we get into some of the other fashion news stories of the week, and I'd love to get to some of your questions soon as well too, but because of the Thanksgiving break and because of the holidays, I don't know about you, but we decided to stay in a lot with family and be super cozy. And we ended up kind of binging a bunch of Hugh Grant movies. If you are ever in a bad mood or a good mood, or you're grieving, or you've experienced trauma, or you're trying to mend a broken heart, or you're stressed and you just need to be entertained but not have your cortisol levels spiked and be transported and be charmed and be delighted, highly recommend just watch back to back Hugh Grant movies, as we did, starting off with Four Weddings and a Funeral, which I hadn't seen forever. Total romp, total delight. But the other movie that I ended up watching, which relates to NEWSFASH, and actually my latest video, which you can watch after this on NEWSFASH, was Notting Hill. And Notting Hill, that's actually what inspired me today to put this white t-shirt on under my black pullover, because Julia Roberts' character in that Hugh Grant, Julia Roberts Rom Com, very beloved. Her name is Anna Scott, and she plays an actress. And a lot of the looks by costume designer Shauna Harwood are meant to capture that kind of late 90s actress off duty. And it's such an interesting period of time for Hollywood that they were trying to be true to in the film, because this is before the era when everyone had stylists, and even street style looks of a lot of your favorite young Hollywood celebrities these days are overseen by a stylist. Even someone like Taylor Swift, who people often criticize for her style, her stylist is still helping her put together all those pieces. She might be throwing the outfits together herself, but my point is, there's a whole fleet of a team and a strategy around it. And Notting Hill and that turn of the century, late 90s moment really is like one of the last times when really public facing figures were more left to their own devices. And we see the combinations that Julie Roberts' character comes up with in the movie, and they feel really right even for right now. So this idea of like throwing a white t-shirt on, which is nothing new, but underneath things, is very late 90s. Also, she has this like Chanel beret in the film that just looks so fantastic. I wish I could pull it off. I don't think with my bangs it would be the best look, but you'll notice like Miu Miu right now, if you look at the supermodel Elsa Hosk on her Instagram, she's wearing a very similar beret style. And then, we often talk about eyewear on NEWSFASH. I've seen some questions come in already about my glasses, which I always get every episode. They're the YSL mica. Go track them down and find them for a bargain if you can. Because they're available for various price points, as I often point out. And I've linked them on my Shop My if you'd like to see some sources that I found to get the exact ones that I have. But Julie Roberts' character wears, I tracked them down, a wonderful British eyewear label called Cutler and Gross. They make really terrific quality eyewear. I'm going to be in London as of next week in the UK for the next little while. So I'll try to take you to a Cutler and Gross store so that we could do a try on together, because that might be fun. And I love sharing eyewear designs. But I found the exact pair and I got them. So stay tuned for that, because it's a beautiful cat eye. I'll see if the tint of the lens is right for me, if I end up doing what I often do, which is putting in my own tint with my prescription in my glasses. But I definitely recommend, if you're looking for things to watch over the holidays and you're a fashion lover, aficionado, connoisseur, appreciator, 90s Rom Coms can have a lot of fashion in them. Another one that I'll add to our list for fashion homework this week. If you haven't already seen Notting Hill, go rewatch that, because she also carries like Tom Ford era Gucci bag in it. And I like how she wears her Vans with tailoring. But one of my very favorite rom-com of all time is French Kiss by Meg Ryan. It's starring Meg Ryan. It's a bit under the radar. I feel a lot of people don't know about it, or it doesn't get talked about in the same breath that a lot of other rom-coms do. But all the costumes that Meg Ryan wears are by Armani. Meg Ryan and Armani have had a long-term relationship. She also works a lot with Prada and wears a lot of Prada. When I've seen Meg Ryan in real life, she's just one of my very favorite actresses. She's often been in Prada. And these days she's been turning up at Loewe's shows as well. So yes, leave it to me to find the fashion in absolutely everything. And if you need some escapist, feel-good entertainment, these rom-coms, and then let's try to track down some of those great pieces that they put these characters in. And just make a little game of it as well. But there's a beautiful blue dress that Meg Ryan wears in French Kiss. I would love to find the Armani version of, or a similar version of as well. And I'm probably going to fall down a rabbit hole for that too. So diving into some of your questions before we go into new fashion stories of the week. We've got about 5 or 6 ones that I wanted to cover with you this week. Okay. One of the first questions we've got here, Petty Spaghetti says, hasn't RL been one of the few fashion brands up in revenue? Yes, I covered that in, I think it was the last episode or the one before that. They're up, it was only like 1 or 2%, but they're an over $1 billion brand, so that's significant. And I think Q4 is really important for Ralph Lauren with the polo bear of it all. Yes, you are correct. Awai says, is there a free course in the fashion industry? Yeah, you're on it right now. It's called NEWSFASH. The other recommendations I would have beyond sticking with us here would be listening to the other episodes of NEWSFASH, the podcast. I have some wonderful people and experts on in my previous season. Everyone from celebrity stylists like Edda Gudmundsdottir, my friend who styles Bjork. She's also worked with Taylor Swift before too. To if you're into working behind the scenes in the worlds of like dance and movement and shoot production. I have a man named Stephen Galloway on who works with Miley Cyrus and lots of supermodels on incredible shoots as well. So that could be a really good resource for you, and a bunch of different people from various ends of the media spectrum in fashion. Also, I would suggest when you say free course, if I was to take that literally, see if you could maybe email a professor of a fashion program at a college or university and ask if you maybe could audit, or maybe find someone who is in a fashion program and ask if they might share their notes with you. I would also consider streaming services a resource to watch fashion films and documentaries, and then libraries as well. Libraries oftentimes too can be an incredible place to read vintage magazines, or they'll have quite robust archives of magazines too, which is really, how have been some of the best ways that I've educated myself in fashion over the years, and how I even probably became a fashion editor and journalist myself, was just constantly reading fashion magazines, understanding the key players and the vocabulary and the infrastructure of it all. So I hope that's helpful. Okay. Next question. This is good. I like this one. This isn't a question. This is a comment from someone named Yosef. They said, to live such a superficial life is a sin. I would disagree. I think to live a life devoid of being in touch with your senses and activating them in their fullest form. And one of our key senses is our sense of sight and our ability to view beauty and to take in the work of others, and to find artistry and creativity in the way that we put ourselves together and the way that other people costume and fashion themselves and others as a form of expression. To live a life devoid of that and finding meaning in that, I think that's a sin, because there's such an opportunity to express who you are on the inside, on the outside, and also to learn more about how other people are intending to communicate themselves as well. So that's what I have to say to that. Thank you so much for that comment. Okay, other people seem to agree with me. Yusuf is getting a lot of pushback here. Jay says, Taylor has no style, very vanilla, if you will. Taylor gives basic, but billionaire basic. Yeah. I don't know. My experience with super wealthy, successful people oftentimes is like they'll fall into one of two camps. One, they either go like very quirky and eccentric, and they don't really care what anyone else thinks. Actually, there's three ways. So quirky, eccentric, don't care what anyone else thinks, dress in a way that is super individualistic. Two would be the kind of Steve Jobs of it all, decision fatigue, developing a very disciplined uniform. For Steve Jobs, obviously, it was like that Issey Miyake turtleneck. Barack Obama has spoken about this too. And then three would be that they dress in quite, it's not really a uniform way, but quite like brand and designer driven way, but it's not super expressive as to who they are beyond just like wealth signaling. Those are the three ways that I've noticed like super wealthy people tend to dress. Oftentimes they might have like personal shoppers or stylists too that will just like send them things in their size, and they'll always, they're not thinking about what to pack or what to wear for various occasions the way that you and I might. I sat next to a celebrity stylist at an event a couple months ago. Her name's Nicole Chavez. She works with Kristen Bell and Rachel Bilson and a bunch of Hollywood actresses, and has for a very long time. And she was telling me that a big part of what she does now is helping busy, powerful, oftentimes public facing clients pack for trips. So put together their perfect Aspen looks or what they should be wearing right now to like Art Basel in Miami. So yes, I find it really interesting how for some people, they don't have the time or the wherewithal to style themselves just on the daily. And there are people who can like really help fill in those blanks. Yeah. Can you imagine though, having somebody do all that grunt work for you? I don't know about you, but I'm a very last minute and laborious packer. it always takes me way longer than I should, and I'm always doing it down to the wire. Can anyone else relate? Megan says, will you be in Iceland anytime soon? Love to follow along on your trips. Yes, so if you are ever going to Iceland, look up NEWSFASH Iceland in the search bar, and you will see I've done a bunch of videos whenever I've been there on my guide to shopping in Iceland, some of my favorite places to check out, introducing you to various Icelandic creatives and the design scene there, and even just like what to buy at the grocery or convenience store or airport. I love Iceland so much. I'm part Icelandic, which I'm sure you're all sick of me saying if you are a regular here, but maybe it begs repeating. That's why I speak about it a lot. And I hope to be back soon. I hope to be back in the new year. Like I said, I'm going to be based out of the UK for the next couple months, and it's a lot closer to LA than LA is, and you can just fly easily direct. So I really hope that I can pop over soon. Abina Styled Me said, do you have any book recommendations on fashion history? Okay, there was a book that I read not too long ago that was historical fiction, but had a lot of great intel in it, all about Elsa Schiaparelli, juxtaposed with the story of one of her more avid clients. What was it called? I listened to it on Audible. I'm going to look it up for you shortly, but look up like Elsa Schiaparelli books because, oh my goodness, she had such an incredible life story. And I don't think a lot of people realize the connection that Elsa Schiaparelli had to the US. I used to be the associate fashion director at Lord & Taylor, and they were one of her initial clients in the US and really supported her like Trump loyal knitwear business. And I loved hearing about that and just thinking about, oh my gosh, the Elsa Schiaparelli was like walking through the office where I used to work. Okay, so this is not the book, but one of the books that you should read is called Shocking: The Surreal World of Elsa Schiaparelli. I would recommend that, but go down an Elsa Schiaparelli rabbit hole. And then another fashion history book that I really liked that I read recently was about Christian Dior. There's a number of those, but read one of those too because Christian Dior has an incredible history too. He didn't start his brand till kind of later in life, but his family history in the textile industry and then how involved his sister was in the resistance during the war in France was insane. She was quite a powerful figure, and her office that she worked out of and led this kind of resistance movement was my former office when I was at Women's Wear Daily. It's still the Women's Wear Daily office at 10 Rue Royale in Paris. So I also loved thinking about the historical connection there of, walls and floors that I had walked on and within that these historical fashion figures had also occupied. I hope that answers your question. Thanks for all these kind words of support about NEWSFASH and about my hair and my glasses. It's always appreciated. Some things you don't have to worry about changing. Me giving you the fashion news here, my glasses being firmly stuck atop this nose of mine, and my hair being the way it is will stay consistent. I've had this hairstyle pretty much my whole life. Before I get to the next story, somebody said, oh my God, my fashion mother is live. When I first read that, I thought you said that my mother was live because my mom is a fashion designer and she keeps asking me life hacks. She's like, let me know when you're going live. I want to join. I want to ask questions. But this is sort of my work. And sometimes having your mom there can be a little bit distracting. She always listens to the podcast afterwards. So I love you, Mom, but I just didn't want to get thrown off a little bit. So sometimes I don't tell her I'm doing this. She did just call me right before and she's like, your hair's looking nice today. And I was like, yeah, I just did it for work. I did it for you guys so that I could look presentable, even if you're just listening to this. Sometimes I find that you need to like rev yourself up for doing things, and, blow drying your hair is one way that I do that. Okay. Tell us a bit about your current day-to-day uniform. My current day-to-day uniform is basically, instead of wearing head to toe black, as I often do, and especially for NEWSFASH, I've been mixing in brown. How revolutionary. In fact, right now I am wearing, do you want to see my shoes? I'm wearing brown shoes. I am wearing these beautiful, very, in my opinion, Princess Diana-esque, which is always a touch point for me, pods that I got on the Real in the perfect bitter chocolate brown. And I'm very much into bitter chocolate brown and black at the moment. I'm also wearing bitter chocolate brown jeans from The Gap, which I read about in Lauren Sherman's Puck newsletter, which is one of the sources I pull from kind of as when I aggregate all the fashion news for NEWSFASH. So these kind of like dark brown jeans, which felt a bit Carolyn Bessette Kennedy to me, but she had done cords, but I'm not big on cords for pants on me. Black and brown. So I'm wearing a lot of that together. That's part of my daily uniform. And I also love a riding boot. That's part of my daily uniform. I'm always trying to source beautiful vintage ones too, from the likes of like Chanel and Gucci. Oh my gosh, I'd love a pair of Gucci vintage riding boots someday, or maybe new ones. That's on my wish list. And then I'm really into leather jackets at the moment. I'm really into shearling as the weather turns a bit even here in LA. My family fashion business, Thermacota, is starting to wind down a little bit. Like we're ending our shearling program. I posted a video about that recently too. So check out our styles and you could get one of our last coats that we're going to be able to make. So that's part of my daily uniform. Thanks for the great question, Lil J. What if you have experience in the industry, but you kind of been blackballed? So you're like a rookie and a vet. I felt that way before. I felt like I definitely burned some bridges of people that, I didn't mesh with, or we had it out about various issues and they've gone in one direction and I've gone in another. And then our paths might have crossed again. And I've thought to myself, oh, I really wish that maybe we had ended on better terms, or that I had kept things, perhaps that I hadn't been so strong-willed in some of my beliefs or pushed back on the things that I did. But hey, I think at the end of the day, you have to stay true to yourself, your own values, and you can only learn. And I think as you grow and mature, maybe you figure out ways to navigate things where you can make your point without pushing people away in the process. And the thing about the fashion industry is it really is all relationships built, and it is smaller sometimes than it might appear. So I think what I've learned from a lot of my own experiences, and maybe you have too, is that it probably behooves us all to play nice and to not burn bridges along the way, and just really ask yourself, is this worth it? Like, is this the hill I want to die on? I think I could have probably given myself that pep talk back in the day. So today I try to probably conduct myself in a little bit more with maybe a slightly bit more of remove, still the same passion, but perhaps not quite as expressive in it. Pascal said, working in fashion and art, what was your greatest moment of inspiration in your career, Mosha? Oh my God, there's been so many. You know what I'll say? When I was 11 years old, my mother brought me to an event in Toronto where the late, great Issei Miyake was being honored and celebrated. And he put on a fashion show for his concept collection he had called APOC or APOC, which stood for a piece of cloth. And every look that came down the runway, it was held at an art gallery in Toronto, I believe. This was a long time ago, right? If I'm 38 now, I was 11 then. You do the math. Each look was made out of one singular piece of cloth. And just like the engineering and construction and ingenuity and simplicity and purity of vision, and then just like that refined elegance and unwavering artistry of Issei Miyake, it made me have such understanding for my mother's work and what was driving her, because she always told me that Issei Miyake was like one of her very favorite designers, and also like understand how fashion can be both like wearable but also incredibly artful. My mom's work was both of those things as well, but in a very different way than Issei Miyake. Maybe not as like avant-garde and conceptual, but she would often commission indigenous artists for her work as well to create motifs. So it just made me really become obsessed with this axis and this collision point of where the art world and fashion became one. And when you see that happen in a way that is also like commercial, I mean, Issei Miyake has a huge commercial business, but I would describe his work as inherently artful. That has been my greatest source of inspiration, I think, and what I continue to seek out. And when I see that, especially in like young emerging talent too, it makes me incredibly excited. But okay, there's some really good questions here, but I do want to dive into the next fashion news story, which is that we had the Fashion Awards, they're called, but it's the British Fashion Council's Fashion Awards, their annual award ceremony earlier this week in London. And of course, Rihanna stole the show. I said that she put the millinery in millinery because she wore this incredible hat. The total look was all by Christian Lacroix. It was archival from the 2002 haute couture collection in this brilliant blue, which you might refer to as Tiffany blue. I am renaming Riri blue. It was just one of my favorite Rihanna looks. I love when she wears like volume and like furry textures. That just really works for me on her. Like the insane Met Gala omelet yellow look that I'll go down in fashion history as well of hers. But I loved that look. And I loved that the award ceremony also honored one of my very favorites, Stephen Jones, with the Accessory Designer of the Year award. He's a hat designer and I've spoken about his work a lot. I wear it. I collect it. I often wear it to the horse races. And he's also the official milliner for LVMH. So whenever you see hats on the runway, and I love when we see hats on the red carpet. I love when I see hats in real life. I love hats completing the look. They really, I think for me, symbolize like fashion at its, no pun intended, highest form, because I think a lot of the roots of our favorite couturiers, especially historically, are in millinery. And it's really important that that tradition continues. But whenever you see hats at Dior shows, at Marc Jacobs shows, at Celine shows, any of the LVMH brands, Loewe, Stephen Jones works on all of that. And he has an amazing store that I've taken you to on NEWSFASH before in London that I really recommend visiting whenever you're there. That's my favorite little routine in London. There's this little triangle. It's my triangle of not sadness, triangle of happiness. And if you want the ultimate NEWSFASH little rendezvous, whenever you're in like basically my favorite city, you got to go in any particular order to the National Portrait Museum. Incredible institution. You'll be so inspired to see all of the different mediums of portrait capture, from sculpture to photography to painting, etc., of great British figures throughout history. Then you got to go to the Stephen Jones, and then you can walk to all these places, the Stephen Jones hat shop. And then you must, of course, go to Dover Street Market, my favorite store in the whole wide world, and finish off with a piece of Basque cheesecake at the Rose Bakery Cafe on the top floor after you've tried on all the Comme des Garçons, Molly Goddard, Bottega Veneta of your heart's content. So that's my perfect little routine. Anyways, that was a tangent because we like to do that here. And that's the whole point of this show, is that I can just talk, take questions, give you some news, and go on these tangential little rants or recommendations as well. I haven't had a hot take this episode yet. I wonder what it will be. I'm in a surprisingly good mood this week. I think it must be all the Hugh Grant movies I watched. Okay. So other fashion news from the British Fashion Awards was that Tom Ford got a kind of lifetime achievement type award, which was presented by Anna Wintour. And there's a clip that I keep seeing from her speech for him where she said, I don't know what this was in reference to, but I just love this quote, this saying that's not officially attributed to her, but it's never chase after a bus or a man because another one will be coming just 10 minutes away. And I thought that was a great line. And then also there was a wonderful moment, and you can see all this coverage as well in a NEWSFASH video that I did, of current Gucci creative director, much contested, controversial, discussed Gucci creative director, Sabato De Sarno, paying his respects to past Gucci creative director Tom, and having this lovely moment at the British Fashion Awards. And then he wrote this whole long caption just praising Tom and what an inspiring figure he is in the industry. And Tom's so friggin' multidisciplinary as well. I'm sure he's working on his next brilliant film after The Single Man and Nocturnal Animals that we'll get to see in a few years. And also Chapova Luena won Emerging Talent. Again, I sort of feel like Chapova Luena is great, but I think you should only be able to win Emerging Talent once. And then we should just extend the pool to different designers so that you can't get that award more than once, because what is really the point then? But anyways, Chapova Luena is known for, and you can also see their work at Dover Street Market, their upcycled tartan skirts, which are made from material that they source from Belarus. And they're really quite beautiful and really quite bulky. And if you want to see more of their work worn IRL, you can see them on the streets of London from time to time, which is thrilling. And also Old Loser in Brooklyn. Mandy is a big fan too and proponent of the brand. I think, yeah, she's one of the original people that I saw first really shouting them out. And then another one of her favorites and mine, even though we probably have very different style. And congrats to Mandy on her absolutely stunning Simone Rocha wedding dress look from the 2022 collection. But Simone Rocha herself, the female designer that I just think is one of the very best in the biz right now, won Women's Wear Designer of the Year. And then J.W. Anderson, who is very much the designer of his generation, had a very big week because not only did he win Designer of the Year, but he also released a Pleasing collab. That's Harry Styles' brand of nail polishes and kind of merch. And so it's Pleasing with the J.W. Anderson logo on the sleeve. Makes a lot of sense. And there was a cute photo of the two of them together working on that. He got signed by UTA, United Talent Artists, which is a big, powerful agency here in Los Angeles, because he's been working on films. And I think he actually has a background in theater. And didn't I read once that he even went to Juilliard for a bit? Anyways, so freaking talented. He kind of is like the Tom Ford, now that I think about it, of his generation, in terms of that extremely seminal figure, but who is very multidisciplinary as well and likes to explore different ways and different medias and mediums to express his love of fashion and his taste level. But because he was the costume designer on the Luca Guadagnino films Challengers earlier this year, and then also Queer recently, starring Daniel Craig, he's now got representation in Hollywood, so more might come of that. Daniel Roseberry of Schiaparelli also recently signed with a big Hollywood agency as well, and apparently has interest and has his sights set on taking a stab at costume design too. And okay, let's go to more of your questions, because I've just talked a little bit and given you all the updates from the British Fashion Awards. But who did you like? Whose outfits did you like most on that red carpet? I really enjoyed Jodie Turner-Smith and Burberry. I also really liked Daisy Ridley, the other Daisy. Daisy Edgar Jones gets a lot of the Daisy attention these days, but Daisy Ridley had a great Miu Miu look too, I thought. Ellie Goulding made a statement in a Moncler Genius big puffer dress. But what looks did you see that you liked? Okay, back to when I think we were talking about uniforms and how we're all dressing these days, and I was sharing how I've been dressing. Lil J said, lol, navy is how I spicy up my black outfits. I will try brown. Thank you. Yes, I spoke about this in a previous episode. My big prediction for 2025 is a mixed drab palette, I'm calling it. So it's not just mixing black and navy. It's not just mixing black and brown. It's not just mixing black and gray. It's wearing black, gray, navy, white, all together in the same outfit. Drab, low contrast, neutrals, all together. I've just been seeing a lot of that, and I think it's a very easy but yet seemingly elegant and fresh way to approach styling yourself right now. Creed said, this dovetails perfectly. What are your favorite and least favorite trends happening right now in fashion? Least favorite. What am I seeing that I'm really not liking? I don't love this idea of trying to look like you're wearing one brand head to toe, trying to look like you're wearing the Row head to toe, or Kate head to toe, or Laura Piana head to toe. I prefer a subtler approach and mixing eras and designers and high low all together, which was done very well back to the top of this episode when I was discussing what inspired me recently in the film Notting Hill. Before everything became so overexposed and we became so easily influenced. I don't know if this is a trend, but I also feel like everyone is going into this dishwater color in their hair. I'm seeing a lot of women go like in this very, I don't know, natural blonde look. And I feel like that as a trend is a bit odd to me because I think your hair is a great opportunity to really make a statement, and trying to make your hair as like almost nondescript and blah and in between as possible. I don't love that. I think if you see everyone doing something with with their hair, run in the other direction, because I don't personally want my hair. I mean, you can tell I've had the same hairstyle for so long. I don't want it to like mark me and mark like timestamp where exactly I am in life. I want it to transcend that. So I tend to avoid those trends. Style Sarah said, thoughts on Kate? I used to love, but everything new is eh. Yeah, I feel like Kate is quite trend driven and commercial, but very expensive. And I think the designer Kate Holstein has done a really great job building a new American luxury brand powerhouse. But I just am like not sure aesthetically what she or the brand like really stands for, like what the codes are. So therefore, I don't find it as terribly inspiring, I must say. Chill Bill says, do you have a signature scent? Yes, it's Andrea Mack, an Icelandic perfumer. I wear Coven and have for years and years now. And then sometimes I also add a spritz of Supernova to that as well to like warm it up. But Coven is like her witch's brew, and it smells like a walk in an enchanted Icelandic fairy strewn forest, if you can believe that or not. And I hope that paints a good picture. Okay, jumping into another fashion news story of the week before we wrap up here, and I take your last questions. Thank you everyone who's joined us thus far. Is J. Crew has named a woman by the name of Julia Collier their new CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, previously of Skims. Now that's interesting because I think Skims is really known and across the board for having some of the most brilliant, savvy, timely, and well executed marketing strategies in the game. Say what you will about Kim Kardashian, about the product, about all of their affiliations and personal life. But I think the rollout of Skims products and their UX and their site experience is all pretty faultless. And Julia played a pivotal role in that. And she's now gone to J. Crew. So that's a very interesting hire for them. And that might help J. Crew further get a bit of its groove back. What do you think? I think J. Crew, under their current creative director, Olympia Gayo, who I know, and she's from Toronto, love a Canadian who is so successful in the world of fashion and retail. And Olympia is super talented, but I wonder if they'll be a really great team because Olympia has a really great eye for pulling from the J. Crew archives and sharing them. I really recommend you follow her on Instagram. She also reminds me of like a young Carrie Bradshaw, Sarah Jessica Parker. She's got similar hair and just a way of wearing things that is really inspiring. And she came up and was championed by Jenna Lyons, still is, at J. Crew for many years. Speaking of which, in other Skims news, they have just released a new collab with the North Face. Collabs seem to be just very much part and parcel with how Skims continues to gain media coverage and storytell and get press hooks. So if you'd like, a brown puffer that says North Face and Skims on it, you know where to go. Speaking of puffers, has anyone seen the new Hyder Ackerman Snow Goose line for Canada Goose? I am probably number one Canada Goose hater. I am completely biased because my family has been generationally in the outerwear business, and I know a lot about the inner workings of Canada Goose, and I don't approve of a lot of their practices, and I don't like Canadian geese in general as a species. They're very annoying. They've shit all over my property in the UK. Don't know why they have decided to make it their year-round ecosystem when they're meant to migrate. So I just don't have many positive affiliations when it comes to Canada Goose, the brand, nor the species, but I do have positive associations when it comes to Hyder Ackerman. I think he's an absolutely brilliant designer, and I was super underwhelmed when I saw how his talent is being put to use at that organization. He's been named recently the new creative director of Tom Ford, and Tom Ford said that he's one of the most brilliant designers working today, plus an insanely talented colorist. So therefore, why did they put forth like these white Canada Goose coats, which to me looked like these boy band styling that was so Balenciaga derivative? I just didn't see a great creative expression there. And I think that Heider Ackerman could just be creating like showpieces for Canada Goose. They've already got their core collection, which will continue to sell, or in their case, not sell. Their sales have been down and down and down and declining. And I think that when you hire a really creative top Parisian fashion designer like Heider Ackerman, you need to let them do their thing fully, as he has done for his guest couturier collection for Jean-Paul Gaultier, as he probably would have done at like Montclair, one of Canada Goose's competitors with their Montclair Genius program, where they actually have designers like Simone Rocha or Rick Owens as well create really unique, expressive outerwear concepts. And I just find like this happens so much with Canadian brands, and I can say this very critically as a Canadian myself. Like, there's a bland commerciality to Canadian brands that make it big, and a lack of creativity, be it Lululemon, be it Canada Goose, be it like a brand like Sorel boot brand, like be it Aritzia. Like, I feel that Canadian brands that grow to a certain size they don't know how to like take risks or have fun or just do things for the sake of creativity and give people permission to express themselves in a way that feels exciting. And I wish they would. Like, I wish that Canada Goose, some free advice for them would to do capsule collections with exciting Canadian designers. Get Erdem, who has a great take on outerwear and is based out of London, to create some insane coats for you, which then maybe like the the princess, I should say, of Wales, Catherine Middleton, could wear. Or get Beaufy, one of my favorite Canadian design duo sisters, to do a capsule collection for you. Okay. Somebody said he will do great at Tom Ford. Yes, he will, because I believe that the Tom Ford team will allow him to take the Tom Ford lexicon and completely color outside of the lines and pay homage, but also do it in the most like luscious, sumptuous, beautiful, luxurious way. Thank you for all these lovely comments right now. Okay. Someone says, I agree, I 100% mix my designer with streetwear and vintage. Blair Taylor said, hi, Blair. Thanks. You're always so supportive and joining my lives and commenting on all my NEWSFASH posts. I see you and I really appreciate you. What is the future for Roseberry? I don't know. Will he be able to get out of his contract and go to Chanel? I think that could be a potential outcome, but we don't know. The user says, have you discussed the LVX Murakami reedition? What are your thoughts about it? I think that Louis Vuitton profits are down and they're keen to play it safe right now. And the Murakami collab makes perfect sense with the kind of Pharrell universe that's part of LVMH's world, LV's world right now. So it makes sense. I mean, that's another reason why they did the, oh my God, why am I blanking right now? Polka dot Japanese artist collab last year for Louis Vuitton as well. Why am I blanking? I've been to multiple exhibits of hers. This is what happens with these lives. The head is just spinning and it's a lot of stimulation. My brain goes on the fritz sometimes because there's a lot of thoughts swirling there when it comes to trying to communicate all things fashion to you. User says, what did you want to be when you were a kid? You're so successful now. It truly blows me away. I don't feel successful at all. I feel like I want to fully realize my potential still every day and in every way. And when I was younger, but I've always been really hard on myself. I measured success by Gwyneth Paltrow. She won an Oscar at 26 for Shakespeare in Love. So I was hoping to follow suit. Kid you not, that was literally my goal. Alt Disney said, it's La Croix, darling. Are we talking about Rihanna? Because I did say it was a vintage La Croix. Yes, British Fashion Awards. Thank you. Alien said, is that where Alex won Model of the Year? Yes, Alex Consani won Model of the Year, the very first trans model to ever win that award. Isn't that so fantastic? Bravo to them. brilliant model, killer at utilizing social media to create a persona and engagement when it is really hard these days to break through as a model if you are not a Nepo baby. Alien said, have you ever been to the Louvre? Yes, I have. Love the Louvre, been multiple times. Can you believe I've never seen the Mona Lisa with my own eyes though? Okay, making sure I didn't miss any questions. There are a few more that we'll do. So if you have any, leave them here as we wrap this up. Speaking of Hugh Grant, will you watch Heretic? Asks Little J. That is what I think I'm going to watch after this. Although it looks a little spooky, and I'm not into spooky Hugh Grant. I'm into charming, affable, just witty, Hugh Grant at his best. Somebody else said, I love the layers of her wedding look, referring to Old Loser in Brooklyn. Mandy, yes, it was so beautiful. I love a wedding look that transforms on its own without having to completely change looks and like leave the party. I don't love when brides are like constantly leaving their own party because you're essentially hosting a party. That's what your wedding is. For my wedding, I had like a coat that zipped off to become shorter. I had a skirt over a bodysuit, which I then took off and switched for a different skirt. So it was very transformable. All made by my mother. Dar Morris says, I agree 100%. I mix designer with streetwear and vintage. Yes, that is the secret to personal style. I'm telling you, it's all about the mix. It is not about wearing one brand head to toe. It is not about carrying an Hermes bag. It is not about having the same hairstyle as Hailey Bieber. It is, look at the Olsens, okay? They don't wear the row head to toe. They mix it in with vintage and archival. That is the key. That is the secret. Cross generation. I think right as I was starting NEWSFASH, I had another concept that I was also experimenting with, but NEWSFASH kind of took off. And these are the 4 things to ask yourself, actually sort of related to weddings too, whenever you're getting dressed. Do I have something old, something new, something modern, and something classic? So even with what I'm wearing right now, I did not ask myself this, but let's make sure. So my something old could be, okay, what's my something old? Is my husband's belt that I'm wearing. It's a Brunello Cucinelli like woven belt. It's old and it's his, and I took it. My something new would be the Todds that I showed you. My Todds chocolate loafers. My something modern, what would be my something modern? I think probably my something modern is like my brown jeans. I don't know, or maybe my glasses. But brown jeans aren't like the most common. They felt a little bit like new to me at least. And then my something classic, you can't go wrong with a white t-shirt, right? And I just layered it with this black merino. So ask yourself that. And I think that's a good trick for finding the right balance when you're putting together outfits. Something old, something new, something classic, something modern. Okay. Oh, Matthew Robles says, I still want justice for you in that trip to the McQueen outlet. Matthew, don't worry. Don't worry about me. I did get most of the things that you saw in that video from Bicester Village, which is one of my happiest places on earth. It's like a designer outlet place in the English countryside, and I will be going back there shortly. It's wonderful. Costumer Shirley says, so great to hear your opinion on all things fashion. Thank you, Costumer Shirley. Maybe you're a costume designer or work in the costume industry, in which case, how cool is that? Darmora says, I feel that Kim filled the gap that was needed with Skims. I think that brand of all the Kardashian brand endeavors probably will have the most longevity and success long term. Blank says, opinions on Casey Cadwalder. He's an American designer who is currently the creative director of Mugler, a brand that randomly is owned by Clarins because they had the fragrance license, and they don't have a huge budget for their things in their shows, but I think Casey is very talented, extremely, and I've liked their recent presentations as well. Costumer Shirley agrees that about Hader Ackerman saying he will do great at Tom Ford, and I agree. I can't wait to see. And then, oh, thank you, the Japanese designer Yayoi Kasuma, whose name I couldn't remember. Not designer, artist, the Japanese artist who did a collab with Louis Vuitton last year. See, this is why this is so great. We can help each other. I can hopefully educate you on some things. You can educate me. And if our brains aren't working because it's the end of the day, we can help each other. Ray Ramirez says, I feel Canada Goose is banal at best. Agreed. Super banal. There's so many other brands to support if you're looking for great coats. Maybe I'll do an episode on that, on like outerwear and my principles when it comes to outerwear. Amanda Verose says, do you prefer the Gucci or Miu Miu ballerina Mary Janes? Neither. I love the Miu Miu, but I struggle with satin shoes. The Gucci ones, I think, might feel a little trendy with that pinched toe. I'd probably go for something like a little bit more nondescript would be my advice. I recently got ones from COS in 2 colors that I really like. And Valentino has some beautiful ones. And the quality of Valentino footwear is kind of slept on. It's really good. Thank you, Shira. Shira Abel is also often a supporter and on here. And thank you for correcting me, Yayoi Kasuma. I appreciate it as well. Okay. Any thoughts on Paris Le Bal? What you're referring to is the debutante ball at the Hotel Crillon in Paris. It's like the coming out for all these like young, rich, worldly ladies that Apple Martin was at last weekend. And yes, my thoughts on that are no shade at all to Apple Martin, all the shade in the world to Alessandro Michele at Valentino now, because he has at his disposal one of the most incredible couture ateliers. And I thought it was completely unacceptable how the bodice of her dress fit. It was hanging way too far down. It needed to go. This is my problem with strapless and why I personally don't wear strapless. It doesn't really work on my body type. It either falls down or creates a pinching moment here with an armpit vagina creation that I don't enjoy. And my mother, in a very probably dated, politically incorrect way, has always told me that this little area right here where the armpit meets the torso is kind of the ugliest part of a woman, because it just can create like that weird bit of like excess something that I like to call an armpit vagina. And when you're wearing something strapless and it hangs really low like that, it doesn't as much create an armpit vagina, which is a good thing, but it looks like it's hanging off of you as opposed to like lifting you up and elevating you, literally, and the bosom. And I thought that look just didn't fit her properly. And you could really see it when she was dancing with her father, Chris Martin. And it was a shame because it was a beautiful look otherwise. But like with all that pleat work, all that time and energy that went into that look, it needed like where the bust line was not correct. And I don't know if they just didn't do enough fittings, but that should have never been allowed to be worn by her fitting the way it did. And if I was Gwyneth, I would have been appalled. There you go. Have you met Rick Owens? No, but I've been to several Rick Owens shows and they're amazing. Sometimes you just see models like walking down the runway, hanging off other models. I got to go really soon. So I'm just going to go through these last little questions. Okay. Derek G. Hi, Derek. Fandom name Armpit Vagina. Yeah. That was definitely one of the hot takes of this session, right? The armpit vagina. But women who know, right? I mean, it's never a good look. It's never additive. It's only a distraction from the fashion. Derek G is one of my very favorite follows on here, and he's someone who's educated me a lot on sound quality, which is something that usually evades me, and music and artists that I need to know about. And I quoted him in a piece that I wrote for Vogue all about Leve, who is the incredible Icelandic jazz sensation. Okay. Do you go live daily or weekly? I go live weekly on Thursdays or Fridays, but I'm going to try to do Thursdays. And then last question. Who do you want to see play Lee and Isabella in the McQueen biopic that's in development? I might be able to find out prior to the casting announcement being made, because a girlfriend of mine is, I think, consulting on that film. Who could play McQueen? Who could play Alexander McQueen? Oh, okay. Who could play Alexander McQueen? I mean, it could be a Tom Hardy, right? It could be Cillian Murphy could be cool, right? I feel like he could really throw himself into that. Who else? Any other suggestions there? I might need to think about that. Emma Corrin, I could see her as Isabel Blow. She wears kooky fashion very well. Who else? Who's that actress? Felicity Jones. Is it Felicity Jones? Yeah, she's from Birmingham. She's English. She was in the Stephen Hawking film with Eddie Redmayne. Eddie Redmayne. He would be insane as Lee McQueen. And I'm really enjoying him in the Jackal right now. Also great fashion. God, that man can rock like a suede jacket well. What do you guys think? Does anyone have any suggestions here? Jared Leto. No, thank you. I don't like when he does accents. I know that he did very well in that We Crashed in the Israeli accent. That was hilarious. But I think he'd like make it too much of a caricature, and he's pervy. Somebody said Tom Ford could looks wise. No, Tom Ford is way too old and he's not. Tom Ford's not acting, he's directing. Tom Hardy. Yes, Derek G agrees. Tom Hardy could be good. The only thing is yeah, I'm not sure about the way Tom Hardy looks. If he could like really sell me on it. Barry Keoghan? What do we think about that? He could be good. Oh, what about Callum Turner, the English actor who's dating Dua Lipa? He could be good. I want to think on the actress a bit more though. I do think Felicity Jones, because I could see her like doing that little fringe that Isabella Blow had very well. Eddie Redmayne is perfect. Okay, let's end on that note. And that's your fashion homework for the week. You have 3 assignments. 1 is watch Notting Hill and go watch my NEWSFASH about it too. 2 is you also need to watch, 2.5, French Kiss with Meg Ryan and see her Armani costumes in that. It's such a pity that Meg Ryan and Hugh Grant have never been in a rom-com together, I don't think. I would love to see someone make that happen. Nancy Meyers, maybe. That would be just my dream team. Nancy Meyers, Meg Ryan, and Hugh Grant. And then 3, you need to watch the Ralph Lauren documentary and make sure you're no longer saying Ralph Lauren, even if you are European and feel the need to say it that way. It's Ralph Lauren, which is called Very Ralph and is on HBO or Max, I think it's called now. And then we need to think about who we're casting in the Lee McQueen biopic to play Isabella Blow and Lee McQueen. Okay. And without further ado, that wraps your NEWSFASH, and I'll see you next week. Thank you so much to everyone who joined and your brilliant questions. And next week, I'll be joining you from across the pond in the UK, where I will return to my town and country, English countryside era, which will see me in, speaking of drabs, a lot of browns and navies and blacks and grays and other manure adjacent hues worn all together. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a wonderful week. That wraps your NEWSFASH. I'm Mosha Lundström Halbert. Stick with me here and over on TikTok to stay up to date on all things fashion. If you have any questions or guest suggestions or feedback, please drop us a line at mosha@newsfashmedia.com.